Hey family, we are back with part two on how to study the Bible. Thank y'all so much for all y'all overwhelming support. Let's get it. So in part one, we talked about the importance of grasping the text in their town. What did it mean to the original people that the text was written to? Remembering that the Bible is not written to us, but it is written for us. So what we are reading in the scriptures is not addressed to the 21st century church that we are today. It was addressed to the people in that particular time and place. And our job is to first understand what the text meant to them. So between the biblical audience and us, there is a wide river of differences. And our responsibility is to figure out what are the differences between the biblical audience and us. For instance, the world of the Bible was a culture that was very collectivist. They cared about what was good for the group. We in the Western world are very much concerned about what is good for the individual. So, for instance, when we look at spiritual gifts, we primarily tend to look at spiritual gifts on how they can benefit us, how they make us activated in our faith. When we look in the culture of the Bible, 1 Corinthians 12:7 says that spiritual gifts were given to the people for the common good. And if you look in 1 Corinthians 14, I think it's like 12 different times, Paul is talking about how the gifts can benefit other people, how they can edify other people. But in our world, we looked at this and determined, okay, how are spiritual gifts benefiting me? How is speaking in tongues and prophecy benefiting me when that is not ever the intent of the biblical author? The language of the Bible is different. We have one word for love, but in the actual language of the Bible, there were 8 different Greek words that were there for love. And so the language of them, the Old Testament written in Hebrew, New Testament written in Greek and Aramaic, we have to figure out what is the difference in the language between us and the scriptures. Here's a good one for that. And I heard people in growing up in charismatic churches all the time say, man, if I be lifted up, I will draw all men unto me. That is what is called a Jewish idiom. To be lifted up meant to be crucified. So when Jesus said, if I be lifted up, I will draw all men to me, he wasn't talking about being exalted. He was talking about being crucified. So what are the differences in the situation? What are the differences in the time? For instance, with the time, here's a good one. How the world of the Bible saw time. Here's a really good one for that one. So many people misunderstand the 3 days and 3 nights of Jesus being in the grave because they take it literally. Where in the world of the Bible, their day began at night and ended in the morning, and any part of a day was considered a full day. So if you're trying to understand 3 days and 3 nights according to the Western world in our calendar and time, then we're going to miss completely what was going on in the text. And then finally, today we saw so many people that just misunderstand the covenant of the Old Testament versus the covenant that was in the New Testament. So we have to understand what are the differences in between these things and how they impact our ability to understand what was going on in the text. Stay tuned for part 3.